The successor to the Nintendo Switch is just around the corner, and I'm starting to think about how the console will turn out. I mean, looking back on Nintendo consoles, they've been amazing to use and operate. The charming UI, sound design, apps, utility, it is consistently an overall great experience. The Gamecube, the Wii, the DS, DSi, 3DS, and Wii U all operated as amazing consoles with remarkable features. Nintendo has always had charming consoles and features baked into them, but with the Switch, it kind of feels like there's no point in really navigating around the console. Take themes, for example. The 3DS had an amazing themes feature with music and sounds that they added, with the ability to even decorate your home screen with these little badges. It was the greatest home screen that I think I've ever used. Now let's compare this to the Switch. Themes exist here, but you only have light and dark. How did we go backwards? The interface is so basic and lacking, while operational for the most part, it just isn't anything more than that. And the reason why I say for the most part is because, well, the Switch can't even run its own eShop. No Street Pass, no themes, the worst eShop Nintendo has made yet, boring UI, I just can't find the Switch to be a better console than any of its predecessors. With that said though, there is one thing that the Nintendo Switch excels at more than any of its predecessors in almost every way. Nintendo Switch has games. The Switch is home to so many amazing games. Super Mario Odyssey, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Metroid Dread, the Thousand Year Door remake, Super Mario Wonder, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and this list goes on and on. But I never once really considered the Switch to be as good of a console as many of its predecessors despite this. Simply put, I am not a huge fan of the Nintendo Switch as a Nintendo console. I must specify Nintendo because it really is a great console, but I always have had awesome memories with things like Street Pass, listening to music on the eShop, making my 3DS home screen look awesome, Miiverse, just all of the things that made previous consoles more unique. Now, what does the Switch have that makes it unique? Well, get this, it's a home console that you can take on the go! Now, while I think this is a great idea, it's not something that hasn't been done before, and with competitors now doing a better job at doing precisely that, Nintendo needs their edge back. The thing that made their consoles wonderful. So with that, this is my wish list for the Nintendo Switch's successor. Simply a concept plan to put Nintendo back ahead of the game with their consoles. And to clarify, I do love the Nintendo Switch, I just wouldn't pick it over nearly any other Nintendo console. Alright, the first thing that I think the successor to the Nintendo Switch could do would be to revamp the user interface. The Nintendo Switch has one of the most basic user interfaces I've seen for operation, and it's not bad by any means, it's just generic, especially for Nintendo. I think it would be awesome if they looked at their previous consoles and formed some kind of theming for the Switch's successor. With the Wii, it has channels. With the Wii U, it has this huge plaza. With the 3DS, it had tons of charm with the rounded edges, animated icons, and again, those themes. The Switch just seems super geometric. Everything is either a square, rectangle, or a circle. The Switch's user interface feels way too modern, sterile, and just kind of boring to use, which is quite uncharacteristic of Nintendo. I think it would be cool to see the return of the plaza from the Wii U, or at least make the UI more akin to the 3DS with the rounded edges, animations when you hover over them, just ways to make the UI more appealing to look at and more fun to explore. I always see hypothetical UI revamps for the Switch online, or revamps to use themes, and they're always super cool to look at, and it just makes me wonder, what's stopping Nintendo from doing something like this? Speaking of themes, like, come on, everyone loves them, and on the Switch the option has been sitting there since launch, and there's clearly some kind of working system for it. This little thing has been hidden in the settings since launch, taunting everyone since the launch of the Switch, and with how huge themes were for the 3DS, it has been so depressing to see this option sitting there with nothing to do for it. The addition of themes would be a huge first thing to add to bring life and personalization into this new console. We could even potentially see this being taken a step further by adding something like the Nintendo Badge Arcade back, which on the 3DS promote a bunch of Nintendo games or new releases with these little crane games to earn badges to decorate your home screen with. I think this is probably the biggest desire I have for the successor of the Switch. So Nintendo makes excellent software. One constant that has always been around is their Mii Maker. However, when was the last time you had a chance to even use the Maker or see the option for it on the Switch? This is the only piece of software that is really on the Switch outside of purchasing games or going to the eShop. Thinking of the 3DS and Wii U, there were tons of things to do just on the home screen. Looking through Miiverse posts, Street Pass Plaza and the mini games in it, SwapNote, the DSi sound player, the internet application, among other things. Now, the Switch doesn't really have anything like this. I would love to see the return of the music player for one, and I'd love to see the return of something similar to Miiverse or Street Pass Plaza. I was a huge Flipnote fan, and while I don't ever think we'll get something akin to it again, I think it'd be really cool to see more things similar to it. Drawing applications to share drawings with other, little games to use your mies in to promote new games while also offering fun minigames or puzzles, ways to share posts or thoughts. Like, I find Mario Maker 2 to be great for this because they basically re-implemented the implementation that the original Mario Maker had with Miiverse. There's so many little things with their applications that Nintendo did that made their consoles awesome, and the Switch doesn't even have an internet browser. For the first time since the Wii, it is impossible to browse the internet on a Nintendo console. No other system in 2025 is like this. So let's bring back the internet application, bring back something similar to Street Pass Plaza, and bring more charm and life into the console through these small applications. Also, while I'm on the note of applications, the eShop needs a revamp. The Switch eShop is such a chore to navigate for multiple reasons. First, the sheer amount of shovelware that gets pushed out. Second, the interface is not great. While they've improved it little by little since launch, it's still quite a pain to use. Third, the eShop can't even run on the Switch. The longer you stay in this application, the more it lags until the point that it's practically unusable. I've been using every iteration of the eShop and none compare to how laggy and clunky this one is to use. I'm not a huge fan of digital games or media to begin with, but this just makes me never want to even consider digital media, especially on the Switch. Also, bring back the eShop music. There's always been music playing on the eShops, and it was just nice to sit back, listen to some music while finding ways to spend your money on games. Instead, you get dead silence, making me sit there on the payment screen thinking of all of the other more useful things that I could have spent the money that I've spent on Mario Party Jamboree on. I don't have any friends to play it with. Why did I buy this? So give the eShop a refreshing redo, get some music in there, and please clean up the sorting and the spaghetti code that's running this thing. I really like what the Switch has done with its games for the most part. However, I would love to see the ability to outright buy virtual console games instead of having to sign up to the Nintendo Switch Online subscription in order to play them. I would also like to potentially see Gamecube or Wii games available on the Switch's successor, similar to how they were on the Wii U. I would also like to see more games having performance settings. Now, I know this is probably a bit of a controversial take. Nintendo hasn't ever really had to do this, but after playing through Tears of the Kingdom, it's definitely reaching a point where the Switch's hardware is too weak to run the game consistently well. And the options for performance settings doesn't really have to be crazy, just a quality and performance option to switch between like other consoles. I got the Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch when it launched, and I don't play my Switch super often, so why the game would barely hit 30 frames and why the level of detail would do all kinds of these weird things is just super beyond me. I'm someone who doesn't really mind games looking bad if it means that they run well and don't interrupt my playing. I think having the option for this would be great going forward for the games that might need it. So while I'm talking about controversial takes, here's another one. The Switch's hardware really isn't awful for what it is, outside of one key aspect, that in 2025 is more integral than ever before. That is the storage capacity. The Nintendo Switch features a stunning 32 gigabytes of storage capacity, with multiple gigabytes reserved for the operating system. Now, when Switch games can take like 10 gigabytes to download, it's almost impossible to fit it onto the system with any other games. Now, the Switch OLED has a 64 gigabyte storage capacity, which is considerably better, both with the option of expanding via an external SD card. But this does mean something. Games that take more than 30-ish gigabytes of storage to use on the Switch will have lower sales. The problem here lies in the idea that if someone who doesn't have an external SD card buys a 70 gigabyte game, they can't play it on the system no matter what without buying another SD card. Now, this means that external physical purchases are necessary to even download the game, which I don't think most of the average consumers really want to do. Now, this is some conjecture, but I do think that the majority of kids who do play on the Switch don't really know a whole lot about micro SD cards to own one for their system. While these are a great investment for the consumer, not everyone's gonna do it, so you'll see less bigger games on the Switch. I think that the successor to the Switch needs a minimum 3-digit gigabyte storage amount. 256 maybe even 512? At least 128, please. Just anything where I can actually fit more than 3 Switch games onto my system. It's really unfortunate because games that do have high storage requirements have to be made into cloud ports. I'm looking at you, Kingdom Hearts 1.5 plus 2.5. This is a collection of HD PS2 and PlayStation Portable games that could run on the Switch. Unfortunately though, it's like 70 gigabytes. So when the Switch only has about 30 gigabytes that you can use, how could they possibly fit this onto the system? They didn't. They put it in the cloud and you buy it for $60 and you have a bad experience. You are better off getting this game on any other platform. I think expanding the storage capacity would be the greatest hardware change that they can do for every developer and consumer who uses the Nintendo console. Now let's get off of that tangent. I'm very curious what Nintendo's plans are to do with the Switch's successor game-wise. With the Switch, a lot of its catalog is made up of ports of Wii U games that were put onto the Switch with upgraded visuals, new features, and I think that's really cool. But what does this mean for the next decade of Nintendo? Listen, I love Mario Kart 8 as much as the next guy, but I can't do another decade of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe plus Booster Course Pass. It's great, it really is. But when are we going to get a successor to it? I'm unsure of what their strategy will be or what the Switch's successor will be like, but if it's truly a Nintendo Switch 2, hey, so quick update. Turns out the Nintendo Switch 2 got announced as I was finishing this video. So it's a sequel to the Nintendo Switch. I love the Switch. It's a great console and what it tries to do is amazing, but I feel like it's missing that last step to realizing it as a full Nintendo console that I can come to fully appreciate. The games on it are amazing. The games that this thing can run are so good, and it's crazy how good some of them look for a piece of hardware that's this big. I mean, we went from the Wii U, which is this beast of a console, to this little thing, and they're running the same games with higher graphic fidelity. The idea of having the controllers be able to be detached from the console to use wirelessly and even rotate to split its functionality so you can play with friends is genius. The games that take advantage of this in its motion controls and haptics, like Mario Party, are truly fantastic experiences that you can only really experience on the Switch with these controllers. I am super excited to see what the future of Nintendo has to offer and what it'll look like. If it is truly a Switch 2, I hope that we can see some improvements to fully realize that last step of making it feel like a Nintendo console. If it's a successor in every way, a new system entirely, I hope that it can leave a lasting effect on the game industry and remind customers why Nintendo is the best console producer. Here's to the future, and let's see what Nintendo has to show us. This video was for fun and meant nothing negative to the original Nintendo Switch. I just wanted to talk about the things that I would have loved to see improved on going forward. Thank you for watching this video. Please leave a comment talking about what you're the most excited for or want to see changed with the Switch's successor. I really am curious what other people's takes are and what you are most looking forward to.